I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Today we're reading from the book of Genesis, chapter 41, so let's focus on verses 15 and 16. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I have had a dream, and no one can interpret it. But I have heard it said about you that you can hear a dream and interpret it." "I'm not able to," Joseph answered Pharaoh. "It is God who will give Pharaoh a favorable answer." Genesis 41, verses 15 and 16. I believe some clarification may be needed to help us appreciate the dynamics of this verbal exchange between Joseph and Pharaoh. First off, in Egyptian culture, Pharaoh was considered to be a god. And not only was he thought to be a god among gods, it was assumed that he was the central deity. He was the god of gods, so to speak. And it was uncommon for a prisoner or a slave to even exchange words with this God-man. And yet notice Joseph's casual banter. He is basically schooling Pharaoh. Joseph's message that God would provide the interpretation of Pharaoh's dream indirectly exposed something that maybe only Pharaoh himself really knew down deep, and that is this: Pharaoh is just a man. He's no God. If Pharaoh was the God above gods, well then why couldn't he interpret his own dream? Furthermore, wouldn't any other god whom Pharaoh consulted immediately assume authority over him, proving that he wasn't the God of gods after all? We live in an era where image is king. Image, they say, is everything. And the basic celebrity promotions game is summed up like this: spotlight the good and then conceal the bad, so that when people look at you, they only see the perfect. Joseph deflected the praise that would have elevated his image in the eyes of the Egyptians. Yes, I can interpret dreams. Well, when asked, Joseph says, "I can't do it, but the Lord can." Perhaps he learned his lesson from his brother's response to the coat of many colors. Joseph understood that image only gets you so far, but the Lord can exalt and he can sustain a man beyond human circumstances. Eventually, all people must produce results to back up their images. And it's possible for a man's charisma to gain him access to places where his character can't keep him. And we've seen too much of that lately, haven't we? Even from some pastors. Put another way, talk is cheap. And Joseph knew that men are unable to interpret prophetic dreams. Only God can explain the prophecy, because only God gives true prophetic messages. So what can we learn from Joseph today? Number one, God has a plan for you, and it may involve unjust opposition and suffering. Number two, despite our circumstances, we're still required to act with humility, with wisdom, and with integrity. And number three, never assume that God will respond to your requests in any particular way, even when you entreat Him with your whole heart. We can only assume the facts. The facts about the Lord. He is omnipotent. He has the power to do anything. He's omniscient. He knows everything. He's omnipresent. He's here with us even now. And His character never changes. When we commit to put that knowledge into our operational theology, how we live out our faith, well, we will only then learn the secret of contentment. Philippians chapter 4, verses 12 and 13, the Apostle Paul says this to the Philippian church: "I know both how to have a little and I know how to have a lot. In any and all circumstances, I have learned the secret of being content. Whether well-fed or hungry, whether in abundance or in need, I am able to do all things through Him who strengthens me." I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Check us out at groundworksministries.com.